In today's episode, I'm joined by the incredible Tammy Waldron, a trauma-informed, spirit-led healer who helps therapists and practitioners awaken their intuition, release inherited patterns, and reconnect to their true selves. Tammy's story is raw, inspiring, and deeply human. She takes us through her journey of adoption, the primal wound, and how she found profound healing through energy work. We talk about what it means to live from intuition and why therapists must prioritize their own self-care, and how energy practices can transform both personal healing and professional practice. This episode is full of wisdom, compassion, and practical tools to help you hold space for others without losing yourself in the process. Welcome to Season 3 of The Spiritually Curious Therapist, the podcast for mental health professionals, healers, and seekers who believe that true healing happens at the intersection of psychotherapy, nervous system science, and holistic body-centered wisdom. I'm your host, Jody Silverman, licensed therapist, Reiki master and teacher, and all-around consciousness guide. I'm here to explore how we integrate the clinical with the intuitive, the evidence-based with the energetic, and the psychological with the soulful. Each week, we will dive into practices, frameworks, and conversations that support deep healing, both for ourselves and the people we serve. And just a quick note, while I'm a licensed therapist, this podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only and is not a substitute for therapy. So let's get curious about the body, the nervous system, the heart, and the wisdom that lives within it all. Hi, and welcome back to the Spiritually Curious Therapist. Today we have another very special guest, Tammy Waldron. Tammy is the founder of Towanda Wellbeing and the Rise Intuitive Healing Arts Center, where she guides therapists and healers to access the energetic and emotional root causes beneath surface symptoms so that they can create lasting transformation from the inside out. An adoptee and lifelong seeker, Tammy spent the first 38 years of her life doing everything the world told her would help: therapy, meditation, degrees, doing it, quote, right, but none of it touched the primal wound deep inside her. It wasn't until she turned inward through the doorway of energy healing that she finally found what she was searching for: the wound itself, the truth behind it, and the power to heal it. Today, Tammy teaches trauma-informed, spirit-led tools like Theta Healing, silent counseling, and the Gene Keys to help practitioners awaken their intuition, trust their gifts, and return to the wisdom of the true self. Her work bridges science, presence, and soul, empowering professionals to unburden inherited patterns, embody their voice, and lead with integrated resilience. Tammy will be co-presenting, this is so exciting, at the 2025 IFS Institute Conference on integrating Theta Healing and IFS, exploring energy and parts for deep transformation. That sounds like an incredible workshop.
So excited for that. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So let's just start with you sharing a little bit about your journey, especially into Theta Healing, because I don't actually know what that is. So when you get there, if you can also give us an explanation of what that is and what drew you into it and how that's transformed your own life.
Yeah, so we're just going to back up a bit because really it starts where it starts.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, my trauma started in the womb. I was adopted, and I used to say at birth, but that's not true. I
Mm,
was adopted at 5 days old, and I have some non-identifying information for my biological mother, and she was 15, put into a home for unwed mothers.
mm,
When I was in the womb, she did not want to have a baby. So I received that rejection there. And then at birth, I went straight from the womb into the hands of the nurses and carted off to the nursery. In the
yeah.
70s, that was the beginning of attachment disorder theory. And I don't think anyone really understood what that meant. I'm not sure how often I was even touched for 5 days.
Yeah.
And It was through my deep work in just honestly in this last year that that sunk in. I was like, oh my God. So now I say I was adopted at 5 days because those 5 days shaped my life. And I had the most and have the most amazing adoptive family. My mother was very religious and she said I was a gift from God and I was, meant for her through another person. I never remember that conversation. It just always was known. I have a brother who's also adopted, different family. And it was really hard because there was also at that time no therapy involved in that
Sure.
situation. And the triangle of adoption where every party when they honor their story, they naturally contradict and trigger the other person's.
Oh, that's so interesting. Can you say more about that?
Yeah. So for me, and the babies get the shortest stick because
Sure.
we're blank slates. We don't know better. It's always taken into consideration the poor mother who has to make that horrible, hard, difficult decision.
Hmm.
And then it's in the favor. Oh, you had such a better life. If your mother would have kept you, you could have been hard. And I have a fabulous family. And then my adoptive mother, she has the trauma of not being able to have her own child, to
Hmm.
not be able to conceive what our bodies want so desperately to produce life. And so for her, her reconciliation is that, okay, this was meant to be. You're my child from another person. And so she reconciled that. And so for me to say as a child, you abandoned me, mother, biological mother. You didn't choose me. I'm not wanted or loved. But in her mind, I loved you so much, I gave you away, right? Contradicting thoughts and feelings, and both of them are true,
Yeah.
right? And then for me to be able to say that to my adoptive mother, I'm really curious. I have this wound in my heart from my biological mother that you actually can't feel up for me. And I want to know about her and I'm curious about her. And I'm so conflicted about open adoption too, because I think that's also traumatic to have somebody outside that I know and I can see you going on with your life and you're not choosing to take me with you. I'm so conflicted with that. And the way I describe it, it's like every in our hearts, in our souls, we have cups that each parent can fill. And with adoption, I got four, my
Mm.
biological and my adoptive family. And so only each person can fill their own cup. A mother
Oh,
can't fill the cup for a father.
yeah. I
When
love that
father's
visual.
abandoned,
Yeah.
they can't. When it overflows, it just overflows over itself. It doesn't fill up another cup.
Hmm.
Until I discovered there's one other person that can actually fill that cup, and that's me.
Yeah.
It took a long time.
I really appreciate that visual because that's the way my mind works. And I think that that's such an important point. And I'm also very much aware of how our souls are impacted by not only being in the womb and our birth experience and those early, early days. And you're right, historically, the belief has been, well, baby's just a blank slate, they don't know any better. And the reality is that we may not know in our minds, but our nervous system and our energy body certainly 100% knows and can feel the energy of our mother and the environment that she is in while we are in the womb. But one of the things that blew my mind is that we were also present in our mother's womb.
Yeah. And
So,
my biological mother was also adopted.
oh, isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
Yeah. So there's
I
a
love that.
whole intergenerational
Mhm.
ancestral line here that
Mhm.
requires healing. And that's not something you can do verbally necessarily because there are no words for that wound.
Mhm. No, and it's not a conscious
Right,
healing.
right.
It's not a conscious healing. So what I knew as a very young child, well, my mother told me I was such a good baby because I never cried, which breaks my heart
Mm.
because I learned not to cry when I was probably in the nursery.
Yeah.
And I have memories of being in the crib just patiently waiting. But when I was older, I would go and hide. I'd hide in cabinets.
Mm.
And I would love to go and climb trees. And I would just find this isolation. And I just had this deep pain, just not pain, but just this deep hole, this deep void I couldn't understand. But I knew I could not talk to my mother about that. Even at a young age, it's like we can't logically know what's going on, but we know what's going on. We're reading the room. And for me, it was people pleasing. Let me not rock this boat because I don't want to get abandoned again. I need to belong, I need to connect, and I need to keep my survival.
So these patterns of behavior can get triggered that early.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
I think this is really helpful, especially for people who, and I know this has happened to me at times, who like struggle to understand where is this coming from?
Mm.
And sometimes it is not in our conscious awareness because it occurred pre-verbal, or maybe it didn't even occur with us, it occurred
Right.
ancestrally.
Mm.
So just kind of putting that out there for folks to conceptualize that sometimes people are showing up with pain and wounds that aren't something that they're actually going to be able to figure out through a cognitive process, through a top-down process.
That's right. That's right. There's a lot of popularity now, and there has been actually in mindset work. Like
Mm,
I love Louise Hayes and I love her work, but that was one of the things I tried. I tried all the things the world told me to do. Affirmations, look at yourself in the mirror, read every self-help book because there was this part of me that was like Eckhart Tolle's pain body,
yeah.
suffering, pain. It's like a magnet. It wants more pain and it was chaos and drama and abusive relationships. And then there was another part of me that was wise and intuitive and said, and was calm and peaceful and was like, there's more for you. So it was always searching for that magic button to say, this is going to help me. And none of it, talk therapy, medication, exercise, degrees, being perfect, also like nothing, loving other people, pouring myself into other people never filled those cups
Mm.
ever until I discovered energy healing work. It was the first thing that actually touched that wound and healed it. Is and it is, I tell people all the time, like when you're doing mindset work, that's like that's in your mind. It's not, these things live in our subconscious. It's in our body. And you try to arm wrestle with that, the body's always going to win. And I know it's been helpful for some people, but my body was like, that's complete bullshit, Tammy. You are not loved. You are not wanted. And I just felt like super defeated about that. Like, man, there must be something really wrong with me because it's rocking for everyone else. But like, this isn't true.
I love that you're being honest with yourself and with us around that because I don't think you're alone in that. I mean, I think people work really hard to use mindset work and affirmations and, change the way you think will change the way you feel. And I think there's a place for that. And it can really, it can help temporarily, but it's not going to take away deep-seated pain. And I read somewhere recently, or maybe I saw it on a TikTok or something, but it was actually about pervasive demand avoidance. It was a parent talking about how to parent a child with pervasive demand avoidance, and she said, you will never win against somebody's survival response. And when you said that, it made me think like that goes for ourselves too. Like we will never win against our own survival response. And all that will do is throw us into this loop of
Mm.
shame and despair. And it might work for a little while, but then you might find yourself going down that that road pretty quickly because your survival response kicks in after a while.
I love that so much. It's so true. And Richard Rudd from Gene Keys says fear is really at the root of a lot, if not all things. And it has this self-preserving mechanism where it will ensure its own survival. So it distorts reality. It really just makes sure that it's going to continue to survive because those are our protectors in
Yes.
IFS. They want to keep us safe. And that's exactly what's happening. And how do you rationalize with that? And this whole mindset, it's positive psychology, it's reframing, it's reframing. That's your mind. You're reframing, and that is exhausting. But you're not really living from your authentic, true self.
Yeah.
You are overriding yourself by operating out of your willpower. And that has a gas tank. And then when it's empty, that's overwhelm, stress, burnout.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about theta healing and what that is.
Yeah. Theta Healing is a guided meditation created by Vianna Stibel in the 90s. She was a healer and she got cancer and they wanted to amputate her leg. And she said, let me see what else I can do here. And so she just started going to a place and praying and praying and praying. And she healed her cancer. She received a miracle cure. And so people came to her and was like, where are you going? What are you doing? And she has now it is a guided meditation that she has created that gets us directly to source, universal life force energy, creator. We usually use the word creator, but whatever you call that life force,
Mhm.
to connect to that. And when you connect to it, your brain goes into a theta brain state. But it's really interesting because the where the theta brain state is naturally and normally, it's more, I think, in the center. I might be wrong on that, but I know that I had an EEG. I did some neurofeedback work with a brilliant woman, and we captured my brain outside of theta and into theta, and she just said, "Wow, what's really interesting is that theta is very prominent in your frontal lobe, which is not normal."
Huh.
And it's theta is when you are drifting in and out of sleep, but when you do this meditation and you get into theta, you are fully awake. It is probably also the place that you go when you're in hypnosis.
Hmm.
And sometimes when it is going really deep and our body can respond in different ways, it can push you into delta, which delta is when you're sleeping. If your body doesn't, sometimes it's a protective mechanism actually
Yeah.
to push you to sleep. It's like, I'm not going there, we're going to sleep.
Yep.
Yep. So in that state, you're in a theta brain state connected to source. And in that, infinite things can happen.
Mm.
That source energy is outside of us, but it also is inside of us. It's the self that IFS talks about. It's our soul. And so we're connecting to outside and inside. You can reframe it in whatever way makes sense for you. I mean, really, ultimately, we are doing our own healing work, but sometimes it's more helpful to consider and think that an outside universal force energy is moving in through us, which is also true, right?
Yes.
So we're receiving that energy, which is 100% perfect, pure love, and it can do anything that we ask. And so we go in and we ask for what we want. And what I've discovered from that is doing that work, it creates a very clear pathway to our intuition so that we can live in that intuition.
Mhm.
What happens is all of our life lived experiences and that of our ancestors and our past lives, that pathway becomes extremely muddy because it communicates through our feelings and through the fear that we talked about, through our belief systems. So when we go in and we start to clear and process and heal those belief systems, those trapped traumas in our system, and release them. And build that pathway of what it feels like to be connected to that, you start to live in that. So I've been doing this work for 11 years. In the beginning, like I said, it was the pain body, and occasionally I would have a spiritual experience. It's completely reversed now, and which is so fun. So I now teach this pathway to your intuition. So now I live in my intuition. I live fully in my true self, in my soul and spirit, and I am engaging in the world. It's a very different experience, and it is possible.
This is so incredible. And what's arriving for me as you're talking about this is I'm just connecting it to Reiki, which is
Mhm.
pretty much the same thing. And also I'm a heart math practitioner, so heart math is also the same thing. And so all of these different, especially energetic healing modalities, but even when we're talking about IFS or we're doing brain spotting or we're doing EMDR, it's about accessing the energy that you're describing, which is pure consciousness is the way that we talk about it, but it's also it's our true self, right? So as you said, it's that idea of like what is above is also below, what is outside is also within. Like so it's really driving home this idea that a at our core, we are pure love and not love in the sense of like romantic love, but this is this other kind of love that we don't, love is the only word we have for it, but that doesn't even fully describe it, right? Like it's the highest, purest vibration. And we don't all live there every day because we can't in a lot of ways. We wouldn't be able to do the things we need to do here on earth that requires more density. But to have access to that in a way that helps us stay connected to our true selves, that's where healing really happens.
Yes. Yes, and theta healing is a little bit more nuanced than Reiki because it does actually harness your natural intuitive gifts. So,
Mm,
talking about the clairs. So, when you're connecting to that, you will enhance your sight. So, visions happen when your eyes are closed, it happens where your daydreams live. So, what's really magical is sometimes I see the exact same thing that my students see and my clients see. And it's just that validation that it gives you that you're not crazy. You're really
yeah.
not making this up. So, sight, you can have this deep knowing. So, we identify the limiting beliefs because they pop into our heads,
Hmm.
actual words, and then you muscle test them to verify that it really is there. And then you change them and you muscle test again and see for yourself that now they're gone. So it's like in your bones, knowing, getting information coming into your head, seeing things, and then some people actually hear. And you feel it throughout your whole body, the energy moving and shifting, hot, cold. Sometimes you can get pressure points and pain points. And every step of the way, as we're going into the system and asking it and inviting it, and really, we actually make commandments for it to change. We are
Hmm.
asking for permission because we're not here to bulldoze or take over anything. And that's incredibly important because I think that's something that's not talked about in the energy healing realm is backlashing. The body, if you push it too hard, what we're dealing with is actually quite powerful. And you want to work in harmony with your body. You want to honor every single part of your body and go at the pace that it wants to go. And that's exactly what I teach, and that's what we do. And when you come in with that energy, you can get a lot accomplished without having the backlash.
I love that you're bringing that into this space because I think that that's very common in like somatic experiencing, and IFS talks a lot about the protectors and somatic experiencing. We talk about the counter constriction in terms of how we have been wired to move through the world and interpret the world and perceive the world in a particular way because of the need to stay safe. And when we start to introduce something that's in opposition to that, our nervous system, our spirit, our soul on all different levels is going to respond in such a way that it will shut it down or overreact. And so going really slow and asking permission and being curious about the parts that are showing up through resistance and opposition is all part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really important to be thoughtful about where you go for these services and how you integrate them into your practice.
Mhm.
So I teach therapists how to incorporate this into their practice, but it's on a spectrum of what is possible. It can be at one end where this is your self-care. This is enabling you to show up in your full, authentic self and create space for your clients and not absorb what they are processing. I think it's shamanic. I mean, my personal belief is a lot of healers have past lives as healers, and in the shaman tradition, you are the conduit for that healing. It goes literally through you. We
Mhm.
are in 2025. That does not need to happen anymore. You can shut that shit down. You can hold the space and they can process their own stuff. We don't need to absorb it anymore. And we can also cleanse ourselves from it with these techniques. And so you stay your intact, whole, fully charged up being so you can be present for all of your clients in the capacity that we need you to be. That's at the one end. And then at the other end, with the right legal disclaimer and transparency with your clients, you can actually incorporate energy healing in with your services as a practitioner in multiple modalities, which is really fun, but you have the choice of what you want to do.
Yeah, and I love that you're talking about the spectrum because, and I'm smiling over here because it's so aligned with how we teach Reiki assisted psychotherapy and starting with we bring if you're attuned to Reiki, A, the energy's always with you, and B, it is there to help support you so that you can stay fully present and aligned and coherent and create a space for healing. And you could never actually do quote do Reiki, but that's a whole other conversation
Mhm.
in the context of psychotherapy, and you're still using Reiki to support the process.
Mhm.
And that's what because we're using it for our own self-care and holding the space. And so that's what I'm hearing from you. So I'm really appreciating this full spectrum. Before we hit record, we were talking about therapists and burnout. And can you talk a little bit more about how this approach in your own journey has led you to understand how we can actually support therapists and perhaps reduce some of the burnout that's happening? Because we
Mhm.
we need we need therapists and healers out there in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So just first off, everyone listening who is in this practice and field, thank you. Thank you for showing up in the capacity and putting yourself into this role. It's so important. And I believe it's a calling. It's calling that is really hard to step away from. And the rates of people leaving the field is really high. So I recently did research, and between 37 and 95% of therapists, depending on, like, there's a lot of different categories that you can fall in under the umbrella of therapist, experience burnout annually. And the rates of those therapists leaving the practice is super high. I believe it's over 50%. And and it's because we hold this capacity, but we're not holding ourselves. So our bodies, our energy, our words, our thoughts, our actions are all energy. And when our bodies, they're so brilliant, if they don't know how to process something, if they don't know what to do, they hold on to it for us so we can show up in our highest and best way and operate. But it gets to a point like a pressure cooker or a carbonated bottle. If you shake it, it can only hold so much pressure. It's going to blow at some point. That's when we use these words in our natural, how we talk. We're at the short end of our stick, we're at the end of our fuse. We blow a gasket, right? It's our triggers and our hot buttons, and it becomes normalized actually. Our body has the ability to do what I call pain amnesia. It makes us, lean for the bottle. I think a lot of people are leaning for numbings to kind of like take that normalized pressure down.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be that way. We have these tools that can help us process those unprocessed things so that we can be in a healthy state of mind, like you said, and in full coherence in our body, in our system, so that we can hold the space first for ourselves. Like as healers, we always put other people first, but really, we are the most important people in our life. You are the most important person in your life. The whole thing of put the oxygen mask on yourself is true, but how to do that? Like what does that even look like, right? It looks like this. Moments of self-care. It's processing your own things because you can only take others as far as you have come. And and I am just passionate about you do not have to leave the profession because wherever you go, your stuff is going with you too.
That is so true. And it's making me think about one of the things that I learned early on in the profession, and it has stuck with me, is that we are our own tool.
Hmm.
And, like a carpenter has a hammer and a doctor might have a stethoscope, but as therapists, as healers, we are our own tool and we have to take care of that tool in order for us to be able to continue to do the work, and how important that is. And it is interesting because we do learn about, quote, self-care, right? And we talk about that in grad school, but nobody really talks about what that is, and what that looks like. And sometimes it's doing things that are uncomfortable. Self-care is not always going to get a massage or a manicure or pedicure. It's about doing your own difficult work. It's about getting yourself to the doctor when you need to. It's about taking a day off when you're not
Mhm.
feeling up to it. And I think we probably all struggle with that because as healers, we came into the world, or we came into this profession because we felt the drive to help others. And so our natural inclination is to put others before
Yeah.
ourselves. So I think changing that narrative
Mhm.
is really, really important. And I also think about Gabor Mate, who talks about compassion fatigue not being a real thing. Because what he says is that if you are truly being compassionate, you will not feel fatigue because compassion actually fills us. It doesn't take away from us. And
Mhm.
what people are really experiencing is empathy fatigue because we're giving too much of ourselves
Mhm.
instead of staying connected to ourselves and providing that support, which I thought was super powerful.
Yes, which you hit right on what I believe too. And everything that we need is within us. We just forgot how to tap into it. So that is why the universe is giving all these gifts back to us and making it very clear. So I teach two techniques that equip you to remember how to access this for yourself. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to see another person, although I do see other people. We have blind spots that I can't see. I need to go to somebody else. But daily care, there's so much I can do for myself. So the one is Theta Healing. The second one is called silent counseling, which I describe as self-regulated acupuncture. With touch and breath, we can tap into the meridian system and release what the body is holding on for us. And you can do it in a matter of minutes. So you could do it in between clients and even going into the Reiki, going into Theta Healing, clearing your space, recentering into yourself. Doesn't have to take long, but that pathway to your intuition is, remember, it's muddy if you haven't done your own work. But the more you do your work, and sometimes it is facing our fears. And for me, like my ground zero was after a divorce. I finally said, okay, I'm going to stop looking out. I had been running from looking in because our feelings are here to help us and show us the way. But when we don't listen to them, they get really big and loud because they're just trying to say, holy shit, Tammy, like, wait, I have something to tell you. I'm actually here to help you. Wait, wait, wait. But it was terrifying. Fear was like, don't do it. But
Mhm.
after my divorce, I just sat alone for the first time in my whole life since I had been born and said, okay, what I'm doing ain't working. So what do I need? And it melted. It was not scary. When I turned in and looked, it softened. It said, Give yourself some grace. Forgive yourself. It's not your fault. Love yourself. Who gives a shit what other people think and say? It's about you. And I got centered and like started to really do that work. And then the root cause, I was
Mm.
able to find the root cause of all of that by digging in to energy healing. And that's a process that is you just take away the layers and layers and layers. And the more you do that, the more stable you become in your true self. The more Viktor Frankl talks about this power is in our pause, this space. I describe it as being in the eye of a storm. Life happens and it can beat you up. But when we are centered in ourselves, we're in the eye of the storm no matter where we go. Life can be happening around us all the time. But when you are centered in that, you've done your work and you have that space. So you're not reacting, you're pausing, you're responding, you're connected, and you have boundaries and choice always.
I think that's so important. I talk about that a lot as well, this idea of the pause. And I love the way you describe it as the eye of the storm and like all of these things happening, swirling around. And if you can find that eye and just pause for a moment and reconnect to yourself, all of those things start to kind of fade away. And it's really empowering because instead of trying to direct your power outside of yourself, which never works well, you're bringing it back to within. And I love that you said that once you turned within, it wasn't scary. And I hear that all the time, and I've experienced that myself. It's like this fear of turning within is so big and keeps us from doing it. But once people do it, it's like, oh my gosh, what this is incredible. So I
Mhm.
really love that you shared that experience because I think that that's important. And it's important for us as therapists to just remember to hold the space
Mm.
for people to be able to start to do that, even if it's a little bit at a time, so that they don't become so overwhelmed.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, the validation that is so powerful, like Brene Brown's work has that given me so much validation
Mhm.
that, oh, I'm not the only one. Oh, like it is terrifying to turn inside. People talk about it as peaceful. That didn't feel in the very instant of the thought to do it and the moment of opening that door, I'm going to tell you it was not peaceful. I had to move through the fear to get to the peace. And then it never came back. Like it was never as hard as that first time turning
Yeah.
in. And you just have to say that this is just my work and these are things that have happened and it's not that anything is wrong with me. It's just this is for whatever reason this is what I need to learn. And that's what we're here to do is to learn and grow and hold space for other people. And what happened just right now, I just had this aha moment. So I've been saying this is my lesson this year was the eye of the storm and I see it as a hurricane and it's the eye of the storm, but when you said it, it wasn't EYE, it was I.
Oh, wow.
And I say that when I walk. I verbalize things out loud. Our voice has the frequency to give us healing. And we tap into that when we're in extreme places. If you think about when we cry out, when we moan, when we're sobbing, we will vocalize.
Hmm.
Naturally, our body just does it, but we can tap into that. So, like speaking things out loud is actually really powerful. When you talked earlier about frequency, saying positive statements are helpful. Like it's the integrated, I call it integrated resilience. We need the mind work, we need the mindset work, we need the body to be healthy, and we need the spirit. They all have that in the middle, and it's I am. I will walk and I'll just say I am. I am. We are sacred beings, and if you are called and here on the planet to actually serve other people, you are ascended masters here to help raise the vibration of the world and to hold a critical space for people to be able to heal. It's incredible the work that we're doing, and it's incredible the time that we're in.
I would agree. I think things are really opening up and allowing us to access all of this information and ways in which we can hold space for people. You talked earlier about intuition, and I know that that's a big part of your work and how you use yourself in this field of healing. Can you just say a little bit more about that from the perspective of the therapist or the healer?
Yeah, so the person I'm co-presenting with at the IFS, she's my student. And the way she's incorporated Theta Healing is she didn't have permission. She didn't give herself permission to utilize her own intuition coming into the session. She wanted to keep that out and just really focus on what was coming in for her client. But our intuition, every person has intuition, right? We
Right.
are born with it. It depends on how well you've tapped into it and what your strengths are. So, not everyone has everyone in the top form, but you can grow into all of them. So, a lot of times when I'm working with my students, people say, I'm not visual. Well, maybe it's not time for you to be visual. Maybe it's time for you to be tapping into other knowings or feelings, and that's okay. It's like you have an intuition, and what is that? So, a lot of people, we talk about our gut feeling. So, when we do this work, you really, it's a part of you that you're growing in a relationship with. And the pathway to your intuition is first through embodiment. Your intuition utilizes your feelings and your body to communicate to you. So for me, I'm highly visual, so I will see things and I also get downloads of knowing.
Mhm.
And so no, I know what that voice sounds like. When you connect with it, you start to really understand. So you know what it feels like, which if you're going to know what your intuition feels like, you need to know what all those other things feel like too. That's why it's super muddy in the beginning. Once you start to do your work and you clear that away and it's no longer a trigger for you, it makes the road and pathway more clear. But you once you connect to it, then you know what it part it is, and then you trust it and you build a relationship with it and you do what it says. And you build this really strong channel of connection of whatever it is that is your intuition, how it talks to you. And like I tap into it all of the time. I tap into it to make decisions, and it's just possible, and it's a part of who we are. We just need to remember and reconnect.
I agree 100%. And I am a big supporter of therapists in particular tapping into their intuition to help guide their work. What would you say to somebody who maybe is is really intuitive and maybe even has some clairs, but is afraid, like your student, to bring that into the clinical work because we've been taught that that's not therapy. That's not what you're licensed to
Mm.
do. That's not a part of what this is.
I believe our intuition is a precision clinical tool. And the way intuition works is it is a deep wisdom. When it combines with your clinical expertise and you pull in your intuition, you get this embodied wisdom that is accurate and true. It's just the nuance of how to show up and how to communicate that into your sessions. And it also takes trust. If you don't trust what's coming through, then it might actually be fear. It could be a protector. If you haven't worked out who's talking to you, you're not maybe ready yet to incorporate it into your therapy sessions. But I'm going to tell you, when you know what it
Hmm.
is. And the way when I talked about that spectrum, the therapist that I work with, she actually is at the very front. She doesn't tell her clients what she's doing. And it's always just an invitation. And she'll say things like, would you like to hear what's coming through for me right now? and she'll share, like, they're just ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, ultimately, what comes through for us is for the other person to deal with. The important thing here is that we are sharing information, but we are not held to the outcomes of that information. It's none of our business what they choose to do with that. We're just here to communicate and share because everyone is doing their own healing. We're holding the space for that. And we are actually receiving information if you're open and able to do that. And oftentimes she gets responses like, wow, that's exactly what was coming through for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, no, actually, that's not what I was thinking. I'm actually thinking this. And both times it's the right thing to say because she knew she needed to say it. And maybe it helped her client get more clear on what it is and what it's not. So we give it with grace, we give it without any judgment. And I've had to say some crazy things in sessions with people. And I say, listen, I don't know how this is going to land. I mean, I'm doing energy healing, so they know what they're coming for, but my job is to just tell you what I'm seeing, and this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a pirate. Does that mean anything to you? And they'll be like, oh my God, yes. Okay, that's what it is. We just have to get ourselves out of the way. It's really not about us. So
Yeah.
in that, it has been this really deepening growth in confidence
Mm-hmm.
and not taking things so seriously.
Yeah. I think that's a really good place to start to wrap things up, this idea of not taking things so seriously, because that seems to be a theme that's actually been coming up a lot for me in terms of vibration and just another way of keeping our vibration in this higher realm
Mm.
is joy and fun and playfulness. And the work that we're doing is serious. And if we can show up from a place of joy and playfulness, often the healing is way more effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just say hold things lightly.
Yeah,
Hold
yeah,
it
I love
lightly.
that. I
Hold
love.
it lightly and process it and let it go and just let it be and try not to have judgment and just being present and observing and curious. And life happens, shit happens, and then just keep holding it lightly and keep moving forward.
Yeah, beautiful. So, is there anything that we did not talk about that you would just like for folks to know?
I already said it earlier. I always end with you are the most important person in your life. How is that showing up for you in your life
Yeah.
and in your calendar?
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that. You are the most important person in your life. Yeah.
Mhm.
And if people want to get in touch with you, they want to learn more about you, maybe even book a session or find out more about your courses, how do they do that?
So you can find me at towandawellbeing.com. Everything is listed on that. And then I have a gift for you. When you go to my website, there'll be a pop-up. My freebie is the beginnings of silent counseling. There's two ways you can self-regulate and really start to take that stress and pressure off of your system. And so I encourage you to go and take advantage of that and start regulating your nervous system today.
Oh, I am on it. Thank you for that. It was such a pleasure to talk with you, Tammy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. What an awesome thing you're doing and great conversation. Thanks.